Hello, welcome back to Rooted, the Arbor podcast. I'm your host Jake Vanderhayden, joined by my co-host Andrew Witter. Just the two
Uh,
of us today. It's been a couple episodes since we've been able to just hang and have a small conversation.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I love the guys, but it's good to be back, the duo.
All right, well,
Cool,
I
man.
think the top of our mind still is our recent travels that we had together, actually with the whole team,
Mm.
visiting Tim Greamy, our wonderful co-founder and co-podcaster sometimes in Nashville, as we mentioned in the last episode. He recently moved there, so we wanted to get the team together and go see what all the hype is about. So yeah, what was your experience in
Ah,
Nashville?
my experience. So they say it's Nash Vegas. First time ever hearing that. I could see why people would say that. It's very, you go there, you party. Apparently, there's multiple many facets to Nashville. So I don't want to label Nashville as a just Nash Vegas. Maybe there are parts of it that are, but I liked it overall. Is super friendly there. The strangers that we talked to. Um, I wasn't so much into the music that was particularly being played there. Personally, I'm not a huge country person. I'm not gonna like go crazy to some country music. But overall, though, it seems like they're having a great time there, and there's a lot of great music too. So overall, I would recommend to a friend.
Yeah, I mean, there was more. Obviously, you could assume that there's a lot of country music there, but there was a variety of other stuff too. I know we went into some places on Broadway downtown that had rock music that had a little bit mix of, we saw some DJs, um, pop music. Then there were some venues that had other styles of music. It was just a lot of music. That was my takeaway. I mean, they call it the Music City, but I just have
Mhm.
never seen a place that had so much going on. If you haven't been to Nashville, it's just the busiest street you've seen in quite a while, probably
Yeah,
on
I was in
Broadway
Times
downtown.
Square. Oh my god, it
Yeah,
was shoulder to shoulder packed when we were there in the middle of the street.
yeah,
Yeah.
they closed down the road, and then almost every like, if you don't have live music, you're probably not gonna make any money, so every place at
Mhm.
least has a live band, probably most nights a week, obviously on the weekend a little bit more, but on the weekend when we were down there on Saturday evening a couple weeks ago, there were places that would have like literally 5 stories and every level had a live band on it. Not just like a guitar player, but like a full band with a stage. And then like the rooftop DJ was a prevalent vibe. Like like
Yeah.
every place was like, do you want to cool down? Do you want to go outside? There's a little DJ up there.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, just to see like the amount of art and the amount of creation happening on that street was something I've never seen. There's areas where you can go on crawls or go out and see things, but nothing like that.
It was really, yeah, it was inspiring just to see all the musicians working, and playing and hanging out, and uh it it was really crazy to see not only that most bars and places of music hang on Broadway. They had not only multiple levels, but like you said, they had bands at every level, and even from like I don't know 3 to midnight, they had music like going in and out. It was just like clockwork, and like super fast setup, super fast tear down, boom, the next band's on, and it was like a well-oiled machine, and people were loving it, and so that was really cool just to be on the other side and see everyone just enjoying music, live music like that, because it's or at least here in Grand Rapids, it seems like there's less and less live music. Other than like those massive venues who are bringing people in from out of town as local, not a lot of local stuff is really happening. There's some, but it's nothing close like a music city. And I wish it wasn't so dramatic. I wish we had more music and just everywhere. Less about like, oh, if you want to go listen to music and the music live music capital, go to Nashville or Austin. But everywhere else, though, it's got minimal live music.
Yeah, why can't we have a band on just one level in every town instead of
Yeah,
3 levels, like
yeah,
that
exactly. Yeah.
that would satisfy us. Yeah, I mean, yeah, even here out in LA, there's live music, and I know like the pandemic has affected the scene quite a bit, but
Yeah.
there's just not like an area like that anywhere in LA where you could walk down the street and every place has a band playing. And it makes me wonder like why in a certain place that that can happen and that it can be supported and that everyone's interested, because clearly there's not a lack of demand there, right? Like
Mhm.
people in Nashville will go out, it's a lot of tourists, but even people that are there, I'm sure there's a lot of people that live there just because of that. Like they love that experience. And the closest thing I can think, you mentioned Austin, but in New York, there's a lot of clubs and there's a lot of,
Mhm.
if you go the actual Broadway in New York, there's all the theaters and things going on, but it's not quite the same energy, and it just makes me wonder why certain places have that and certain places don't.
Yeah, and you could say it's like, I don't know, like we always talk a lot about supply and demand, but it's almost like they have the power of the logo or the power of the name of the city now that kind of keeps things running. Like, oh man, it's crazy in this city, all this music. But yeah, I don't really know. I mean, I know there are places here in town that obviously do have live music, but it just seemed like such a collective. Let's go out, let's have fun, let's listen to some music. Like that's not really for me. No one really in my circle, even around here, other than obviously musicians and some art lovers. It's not like just like a random thing someone's gonna really say to you. Oh, let's go and do this. There's some niche pockets of people who do, but nothing like a music city. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's been the gradual change of streaming and um, easy access to music. Like that barrier's gone down quite a bit. I know talking to some older musicians who've been in West Michigan for a long time. There once was places like you go downtown Grand Rapids and it would be a lot of live music on every. You go to this hotel, this bar, like there's live music happening, and that it kind of becomes almost like a little magical experience going here and seeing live music and being shared. That energy exchange is really powerful versus just playing some loud music on some speakers.
Yeah, I think the closest thing that I've seen that works across geography in the American culture is the music festival concept, right? Like it's
Mhm.
nothing new, but I feel like in the last 10 or 15 years, starting with events like Coachella or Lollapalooza, these big festivals
Mhm.
in the big states, but now there's festivals out in the middle of no quote unquote out in the middle of nowhere, right? Like I know the big one in West Michigan is Electric Forest, and that one is
It's huge.
definitely not in the city. It's out in the woods. It's off the grid.
Mm,
But I think ultimately the connection must be community, because you can
mm,
set up an event and do all this promotion and spend all this marketing dollars on it, but if there's no like authentic community backing it, that's what people crave, I think, is to be able to go
mm,
out and be a part of something and have that collectivism,
mm,
and I think Nashville is bound by its ties to country music, and that is a really strong knit community. Or, you know, there's a really strong knit community of people playing jazz and going to jazz clubs and the history of jazz in New York City. There's an equal scene in Miami for Latin music, Cuban music. You know, people come together for something that they're interested in. I think that that's a uniting theme for sure.
mhm.
Not just the place or the bar or whatever, but like what's pulling everyone together to come and do that.
Yeah, you make a good point about community and also the I don't know, maybe the last bit you were mentioning kind of some like branding or what's getting people to actually go and listen to the music and um yeah, I'm interested. T made a good point about COVID, and we're still, we're a few years out of that now, but still, I think people, and especially in the restaurant industry, that is notorious for making just dismal profits. To be able to, I mean, even with some places we've played here in West Michigan, they're fighting us over like $50 or $60 a time we play because it's just that like. that's the little margin they have. So I hopefully coming out of this, we'll see more places just have live music as they slowly are recovering from the pandemic when things are just locked up, shut down. I think there's some reemergence happening, but music festivals, some of them are doing incredibly well, some of them aren't. I actually heard the other day that someone was talking about a music festival, a big one here in I guess northern Michigan. They they used to be. This is reported someone who's been around for a minute. They were like, "Yeah, I know a lot of music festivals back in the day used to launder for like cannabis." I was like, "Wait, what?" He's like, "Yeah, they would, like that's where a lot of the money would go for some of that shit." And I was like, "Dang, I never even thought about that." Like they're like, "Oh man, do you think ticket sales like cover that, like all the artists and that sort of thing?" There's like no way that's gonna. So I know there's some things have happened, some things have changed. Things have become legalized with cannabis, but I'm hoping that we can find a way to like combine. There's plenty of demand and interest out there. I don't really see why more music festivals can't be successful. Although I know it's can be expensive to really put one on. Absolutely, as someone who's put on events, I know it can be very expensive and time consuming. But hoping that people are strategic about maybe some brand partnerships and get people out and doing them, because the energy exchange in Nashville and even in Austin when I've been on Broadway in Austin is it's just like unmatched. I think that's so needed in the world to bring people together, the community, help each other heal. Like more music, yes,
So
more live
I
music.
think I think the key is every town just needs a street named Broadway, and then you'll be able to have music.
Yeah, we found a hack actually.
That's
Just
the common thread. Take notes, city planners listening out there.
mhm,
But, you made an interesting point about our experience playing in local bars and restaurants, having a band in there. And, if you really filled the place up, there would be no argument about that, right? So there is clearly a demand issue where they're not filling the place up because you would pay any price to fill the place up. So to me, it just seems like there's some disconnect where if you aren't really authentic about your intention behind having a live artist like a band in your establishment, if it's
mhm.
just there as background music, especially like, Andrew, as a drummer, you especially know this, but like, hey, can you quiet down? People are trying to talk. Like, to me, like, just put on a playlist then, all right? Like,
Mhm.
why do you have a live drummer in your distillery if you don't want people to hear that, you know?
Yeah, 1,000%. I know that, a teacher of mine once said, "Drums look loud." So, like people come up and just see the drums and they're like, "Oh, that's too loud, turn that down." And then and it's hard because, yeah, then what's the point, right? And if if you really want the aesthetic of a band, just, like, like, buy a picture or something like that and have a nice recording
Have
going. I don't know.
a
Um
hologram going, you know?
yeah. Hey, yeah, seriously though, holy cow. Because I don't there have been there's a lot of places who I just don't think do music right, and Broadway and 6-3 are two great examples of places that have like you're going there for music, it's going to be good, the party's gonna be great, everyone's gonna be going crazy. Like you don't have to have that at a nice like wine bar or something, right? It's a very different vibe. But there's ways of incorporating the live music to be a very elevating experience. There's a cocktail lounge here in town who does music, and it's the elevated version of background music, and they've got like a duo or trio on stage, and you come and you listen to music, and they have everything acoustically sound in there. So a lot of a lot of really thick, heavy drapes that are covering the walls, and we got sound panels and stuff. So, they kind of take the edge off some of the echoing that happens. So, back to your point about doing it right, like have some acoustic treatment in your place. It's like it's incredible. You can have a whole three-piece band. Everyone can be talking, having conversations. If you put some acoustic panels up, do some acoustic treatment in the space. Like I can't even count them, come to mind how many places I've played that literally they're, "Oh, man, turn down, you guys are too loud, you guys are too loud." I'm like, I'm literally playing in a steel and concrete like cylinder. This thing, everything is echoing, like it's booming. I mean, it's awful. It's like if y'all just put even a few $100s in and gave a crap about the music, it'd be well worth it. It would easily make money back and then some within the next, few months. I mean, just think about it, do it right. Give a shit.
Yeah, absolutely, like, just, like, your intention, like, no one's going to a honky tonk in Nashville to just, like, have a conversation at a table and be like, "Hey, can you just shh?" Like, no, like, that's not like, I mean, I think that a lot of art now, like, I go to an art museum, I go to a musical in an auditorium, I go to a concert at the Hollywood Bowl, like, I'm going to a venue with a very specific intention for
Mhm,
programmed art, but when it's not so intentional is where I think it really starts to break down, and then when you don't have that intention, then you don't have that community surrounding it either. Like, if I'm just inserting a jazz combo into a distillery, maybe some people are just there to have a cocktail, like, maybe they aren't there to listen to jazz. Maybe
mhm.
some I think for a lot of people, it's like, okay, they're not in the jazz community, they don't really understand what's going on, it's just this nice aesthetic for them, it's background music, but they are just there to, like, have a conversation, have a cocktail, and have this vibe going on behind them, but it just kind of becomes it like, if we talk about vibration, it's just a low vibration when someone tells a musician to be quiet. Like, you literally are like, I'm not even getting too philosophical here, like, you are literally lowering the vibration when you tell a musician to be quiet. Uh, it's just like you're interfering with their art, like, they're creating, especially something like jazz, like, if it's cover music, sure, it's somebody else's art, they're making it their own, but they're expressing themselves with their instrument, but, in jazz, it's like you're improvising and writing that music on the spot, like, that couldn't be interrupted. Like, you can't tell someone to change that because they're as an ensemble expressing themselves. So it just doesn't sit right. And that's why these things don't work. That's why a distillery that hires a band and fights over $50 will eventually cut the band, not have music at all anymore. And then odds are the way that they're running their business, they're probably going to go out of business. And we've seen that happen with some of these places. So it's like,
Yeah.
if you just want to be a distillery and you want to make the best bourbon in town, then just do that. But if you want to be a jazz distillery, then sure, but
Yeah.
be intentional about it and paint it up above the door that you have bands every weekend. Like,
Mhm.
have clear intention.
There is hope for at least, Grand Rapids. There's a place opening up here in town that is a bar that is openly, even before they're starting to create some, awareness in the community before they're even open, about how, how about music they are. So it's super cool to see a venue that's a bar, that's a club that's like, we are doing music and we're gonna do it right. So I think there's hope. People are hopefully catching on to this, because it hurts everyone. It really just hurts everyone that they're not taking the time to be respectful for the music and, do it right versus just throwing it in the back. Literally, just like some of the places we played in restaurants, I'm like, did y'all like think this through? Like, you don't have room to move the tables. There's no outlets over here. Like, you know
Like, it
what I
was
mean?
just an idea they had in a meeting to try to stir up more sales. Like, I
Mhm.
don't know how every time if it was really set on, let's make this a space for artists.
Yeah, I'm really happy too to see, we've got in Grand Rapids this thing called Artprize, and Artprize is a really cool example of an event that promotes art. But there's a lot of each year, more and more businesses get involved with hosting art or having exhibits in their business. So this year, it really expanded heavily to the street I live by, Wealthy Street. A lot of restaurants and shopping on Wealthy Street. They in our prize partner with probably a good almost dozen places on this Wealthy Street area, in restaurants and in coffee shops where they'd have art on the walls. So seeing that is really cool. And a lot of these places continue with the art even after our prize, now putting art up in their, places. So that's cool to see for visual art that's happening in places besides just, your small little exhibits, or having a place that is like really intentional. uh we do art and coffee or that sort of thing. It's nice to just walk into a random place and like, oh, here's an artist I can buy from on the wall here. Um, so that's good. That's good positive movement for sure. And I hope more places adopt it because for someone like me, I think in our generation, that's valuable to us is to have artwork around us and in our lives.
Yeah, and I think Artprize it's the largest outdoor out or it's not all outdoor. It's the large some stat. It's the
Yeah.
largest art competition in the world. There's some
Yeah.
big prizes if you win, but for those who haven't been, the city of Grand Rapids and several organizations in town organize this event every year. During COVID, it was not every year, but it's back now. And the whole town basically turns into an art gallery, like Andrew mentioned, a bunch of places from actual art museums to, a local coffee house just renting their space out for this event. Basically, like, you can have your art displayed on the wall, or there's, big sculptures or installations that are put in town. There's every year in the river in Grand Rapids, there's some creative giant artwork in the water. There's things hanging off of buildings. It just is a really unique concept, and I think it's an example of thinking outside the box of intention, because a lot of these venues that are hosting the artists for this festival are not intentional, like we were just talking about, as far as it goes to having art, but the organization is, and they're bringing a community of people to the place, and their brand is that you're there to appreciate this art. And that's why people come from out of town and flock to this event, because they know what they're going to expect year after year, seeing all these great works of art. And I mean, it's worth checking out for sure. If you
Mhm.
have never been to
Mhm.
Artprize in Grand Rapids, take a visit. It's in the fall every year.
So Artprize holds the record for being the largest art competition in the world, attracting hundreds of thousands of visitors and offering over $600,000 in prizes. So yeah, I mean it's huge, and every year it does get bigger, and people come in from all over the place for this art prize. Very worth it. But I like what you said. Doing things differently, intentionally. Kind of taking an inventory of that, and um, that's definitely something that I've always tried to do with bringing more of like a business mind to the art as area, art industry, and that's always helped. I mean, that I've been able to help a lot of people with just consulting and working with them on things like marketing and business development through understanding that kind of side of things. And it seems like, um, yeah, I hope a lot of people were able to move towards that direction. But I know that's something that we wanted to talk a little bit about today. Um,
Yeah, one core thing I think that relates to all the stuff that we're talking about is marketing mix, which started with the basics, which is the 4 P's of marketing, which is product, place, price, and promotion. Now, those terms consist of a lot of different things, and they can mean a lot of different things to different businesses. But I think as far as product goes, artists aren't going to be too concerned about modifying their product and engineering it. Like, let's say I'm making some appliance or something. I'm not going to be design thinking the same way an engineer would if I was an artist. I think the product for this conversation speaks for itself. Artists should be authentic to themselves and create their product that they want to put out, and not
mhm,
be focused so much on the product that's in the market, which I think is what we've discussed already and will continue to discuss on the pod here, that lack of authenticity will never get you anywhere. It might make you some money in the short term, but it's, the true legends, or the people that really embraced themselves and succeeded. They were not doing serving others. They were serving their inner creativity, right?
mhm,
So let's talk about place, because we were just talking a lot about venues. We're talking about how a place can be transformed into the world's largest art museum as a collective in this city. What's going on with that? There's some layers of place in the 4 P's here. So the main ideas to think about with place would be the channels of distribution and
Mm,
also literally the where it exists, where it sits, how it's presented, right? So we're talking about a stage for a band. It has sound panels, it has microphones, it has
mm,
clear visual sight lines to the band. It has all of these elements of place that are important and conducive to the art. But also, I could make the most dynamic live music venue and I could go put it in a field in Iowa and no one would know that it's there. I need
mhm,
to put it in a place where there's people, where there's some kind artists need to think about that. Like
mhm,
if I'm doing research on where I want to do a musical or I want to do my show or I want to do my live painting or something, like it needs to be somewhere where there are people interested and there it is accessible to people, right?
mhm, mhm. And you got to think too on like level of brand too. Talk about being a piece being different for everyone. There's you got some of a following too, and now it's time to get strategic with the placement in which you put your artwork. So there is like that mix of who you can bring, where to put it at, where to get like eyes coming from. For example, there's local downtown market here that we have in Grand Rapids, and they're like the downtown market's a great like launching pad for some brands if they can get in there because they bring so many eyes already to you know your thing, but uh, also making sure the space is super conducive to it's once again very awkward to as a musician or as an artist to be told to like stop doing your art because it's oh it's too loud or oh it's too this or too that like yeah, you wanna find a conducive space.
I think there's also this whole idea of digital place now too, right?
True,
And I
yeah.
think that a lot of people assume that wherever they're posting their content online that that's the right place online, but maybe if you're struggling on one platform you'll find yourself on another platform. I know there's a lot of
Mm,
creators that were on YouTube for years and posting their music on Spotify and going out into the world and doing things and not getting anywhere. And all of a sudden, TikTok comes out a few years ago
mhm,
and they explode overnight due to just the place that they were. It had nothing to do with what they were creating or their existing fan base. It really just had to do with being in the right place at the right time. And some people might call that luck, but I think that TikTok algorithm is too smart. That's not just luck. Like there's
mhm,
like if you put
mhm,
the right thing in the right
mhm,
place and you pump it through, it will get out to the right people. And I've heard several artists that have come up like during the pandemic, seeing them at some shows and things and just like I know one in particular is Cody Fry, great musician who's doing a lot of really interesting things with bringing like orchestral music to pop music and writing his own arrangements and things. And he totally credits TikTok. He had some major articles that were in Rolling Stone put out about when the music labels were pulling all the music off of TikTok due to
mhm,
some of their contractual disagreements, and how he was citing that, without that place that he was succeeding, that he wasn't able to do do what he was doing, continuing to do what he was doing, because TikTok was his place where he took off and built a huge fan base, including me. Like I that's a story for me of finding him as an artist. I had not really been exposed to him before that. So when then once you find a place, if you interfere with a place and you change a place, then that can really disrupt things. I wouldn't encourage people to settle for something, but you
mhm.
just realizing the importance of finding that and striving to continue to find that place, because there's going to be someone somewhere out there that will value and appreciate and buy your art if you are in the right place.
Yeah, and that's part of the just having a brand in general is testing and changing and adapting, and even before this call, we were looking at, um, our YouTube channel, and it's super small, literally, the some of the analytics we can't even get because of our data set is so freaking small. It's like, really nothing to be changed here because we don't have enough data. But what is happening? Like how are things looking? And taking inventory of that is super important in the marketing mix to have some sort of feedback data loop. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It can just be, oh, looks like we do have some traction here, or we don't have some traction here. There's so many places in the digital world to put up art now that I think it's like better than ever to be an artist, because you can hop on the digital landscape and find creative ways to get in front of the right people and be in the right place digitally. So there's now that digital and physical mix. So as for place, it's part of the experimenting. If you are very strategic in some of the places that you're in already, like highly encourage some new placement and see what other fun places you could be that are maybe up and coming, or uh, maybe more niche places to uh, see what happens. That's part of the fun, is the experimenting.
Yeah, distribution channels are super important. If you go into the super technical business side of things, distribution channel could be, what retailers am I going to sell at? Or am I going to be online? Am I going to be in store? These types of things. If you think about it in terms of a product, a commodity versus art, it gets a little weird, but there's a lot of parallels that you can draw there, right? It's like I need to really test and learn and determine what channel is the best way to get my art out there to people. And for some people, it might not be doing anything online. I know a lot of people
Mhm.
that just go to art festivals and they sell their things in galleries and they don't want to do anything online. They don't want e-commerce. They don't have a social media page. It kind of feels like a necessity now to have those outlets and those channels, but I don't think it's necessity if you really have a good thing and you're in the right place in front of the right people to, be
But
able to resist
to your
that
point,
still.
it's like for them, that works for them, and that's what they want to do. So part of that is starting with the end in mind, understanding, where exactly do you want to end up, and then working backwards from there. Because for me, like hearing, someone who's just not on any sort of digital landscape, I'm like, even if it's going well for you, if you're totally content and satisfied, and that's great. But if you have even an ounce of wanting something a little bit different or changing, I'm like, you got to be on digital, you got to be online.
Yeah, I think a good example too from our experience, if we get more into now just beyond place, but also the promotion aspect of the marketing mix, is the advertising and public relations sphere. I think a lot of people are drawn to the appeal of the free ability to post on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or these, large web 2 platforms, but it might not necessarily be reaching your customers correctly because a lot of the algorithms and advertising models are geared towards you spending and targeting people on these platforms. So if you're going to spend, you can target, but it's just not the same as it used to be as an advertiser that's worked in, product marketing, service marketing, art marketing. There's just not the same availability of data that we used to have, which is good because it's protecting people's privacy and all of that good stuff. But as an advertiser, it's a little frustrating, but you have to go to the platforms where it really makes sense. So in my experience with In the Blue, our jazz group, we had tested various forms of advertising. We did some bridal shows to try to find people that were interested in the band. We obviously had all our social media. We tried a few, booking sites that were for events, but we really resonated with a couple platforms that were more geared towards wedding planning. And that's, notably the Knot was the website that we found that worked for our art and for our business, because our goal was to get involved in the wedding industry. And that's the number one place in terms of eyeballs on a page where you
Mhm.
can find the right customers for your art. In this case,
Mhm.
that made the most sense to us, and it has continued to work for the past 8 years as the business has grown to be in that right promotional mix with the right place. There you can tune some of the other, like the product offering. We've added more services, or we also added on some collaboration with a DJ, and that led to a better product that was more palatable to customers. And as we built our business, we can move through these different levels of the 4Ps and then work on our price and really improve on, charging what we're worth and measuring the market and understanding all the costs that go into creating our art and making sure that the band is compensated fairly for the work that they're doing, all the travel, the setup. We've talked about it here on the pod. We will continue to talk about it on the pod because we need people to know that there's a lot that goes into art, not just the hour that you see the band playing is not all that you're paying for. But, as we moved through our marketing mix, we really started to understand that there is a true cost to doing this and that, we really need to have the correct price in the market to make it worth it for the band so that a quality product is being delivered to our customer and that the margin is fair. So that would be my recommendation as you work through your marketing mix is build in a lot of these costs. Like you might need some software, which we will talk about a little later in the pod today.
Mhm.
You might need to invest in advertising. You might need to invest in some equipment, like even for the
Mhm.
podcast. Hopefully, I sound a little bit better because I bought a microphone for this podcast because I'm trying to
Mm,
improve our product. So
mm,
there's some things that you need to factor in and budget for as an artist where you can't start from square one and say, well, someday I'm going to get there and figure it out. Like start with your end state of where you want to be and what the price that you want to charge and all of these things in your budget, and then work your way back to what price that you need to place on something to value your art. And then
mm.
from there, execute on all of those things. Don't short sell yourself.
Yeah. No, I want to backtrack just a little bit to made some good points on product and offering. Uh, I think there is small details, we can upgrade, kind of your point, like budget those upgrades in. And that's part of upgrading your in diversifying or whatever it may be. There's fun ways to offer experiences or just get creative with that. I would say I don't want to say too much. I really want to leave it up to the individual, but there is ways to help differentiate yourself that are still super authentic to you and um, not necessarily tailoring your art to be less authentic.
To
Mm.
have less authenticity. Yeah.
Yeah.
um,
Gee.
but and well, that leads us, I guess, out of this topic for now. We'll continue to follow up on the 4Ps, but I really want to get into um, authenticity and adaptability because I
Mhm.
think that's the struggle that artists have is they want to be authentic to themselves and do what they want to do, but they also feel the need to adapt and change their product as they're experimenting. And I wouldn't really discourage either. I think it's fine to experiment around with things and adapt to what you're seeing, but I think that you just have to keep in mind that you're doing it for yourself and that you're okay with that because otherwise you're going to get burned out. Like if you don't
Mhm.
enjoy playing jazz at a wedding and you just want to play in a coffee house, then I don't recommend that for you. It may be you need to experiment with another genre of music that gives you that fulfillment of playing in a venue that has that specific intention for music and see what is out there in the world for you to make a judgment. As long as like that fulfills your need for your art in an authentic way, then that's what I would recommend pursuing. But you don't have to just do what people are telling you to do. I like
Mhm.
we've mentioned
Mhm.
before, the true like innovators, did go try different things and they came back to themselves and they evolved and changed and built something new out of everything that they had learned, and that was authentic to themselves, but they weren't doing it because someone told them to do it or because they were trying to make money or they were trying to chase fame and success. They were just focused on themselves.
Mm. Yeah, also the emergence of AI and AI music. I follow this guy on TikTok. Looking at music, for example, he found some YouTube channels that are like it's AI making the music and like publishing the music, but it looks well, like personally for me, it could just be some random person on the internet, making music. You wouldn't really notice the difference. So people are quite frightened by the potential of AI in artwork, but I think that's the flip side of that is now it's allowing artists to truly create themselves and to go down that path and that journey, because the kind of commercialized aspect of music will become, AIified to some degree, and although there's still, I think, will be money there for humans to create, a lot of this shift is going to be into, I think, really prizing someone's uniqueness.
Yeah, I think that's really the case for human creation is that you can understand what is unique and authentic to an artist versus what an algorithm or some machine learning output is deciding is creative or is deciding is interesting to someone. Because while some of those things might be very entertaining, I know like Netflix writes a lot of shows with that kind of thinking in mind. Like they're like, here's all these elements of what would be a really great show. Let's put it out. Let's put something together that takes all of these things that a computer thinks that someone will like. They have all this data like average watch time and all these genres and what music was there, what lighting did they use, all these things. They try to put it together, which is a really interesting way to create content. And but I think there's also something to be said behind what a person really has as a vision, and
Mhm.
that manifesting itself in their creation. And I think we are smarter than we give ourselves credit for recognizing that. I think that we can really understand and connect with an artist when we see their vision manifested in their art versus when
Mhm. Mhm.
something is created by a machine as a summation of art. But what's kind of scary about AI is that it's all trained on human creation and human expression and human art. So it really is going to create products that can sort of dupe us, right? Because it didn't create that itself. It took a large amount of data and it compiled all of that human expression into something that it was being prompted to do or that it was designed to do.
Mm. Yeah, it's like the ultimate version of doing what you think someone else would like.
Yeah.
And if you do that, like, you will lose to AI. AI will win. I was learning about chess the other day and about how it took, it took some time before computers could beat humans in chess, but it happened, and now that it's happened, no one's ever beat a computer. Um, so it's like the wonderful thing with artistry is that if we try to beat the computer at its own game, like, we're gonna lose. But the wonderful thing is you can play your own game and create something truly special and unique that a computer will never be able to do, no matter how good it gets. Um, for at least here in the near future, because it even what I think there's kind of this connection to the some, this is gonna might get a little philosophical or metaphysical, but the spiritual realm. People always uh, think of music and art and dance and these things that we express in such a unique way as being a connection to something metaphysical, something beyond this waking realm that we have, and we as human individuals have access to that. I think regardless of what you believe, but whereas a computer doesn't really have that. So it's going to be this fun kind of evolution where I hope it really encourages people to double down on that difference that we have versus trying to compete with AI and computers.
And we're going to face this large challenge in the creative community when it comes to rewarding and valuing art against the creation of AI. Like one example is that an AI can create like a soundtrack to a movie now. Like you could ask an AI like,
Hmm.
"Hey, score me this really dramatic chase scene music in a movie," versus a
Hmm.
composer really thinking about the elements of what needs to go into that and orchestrating it themselves. And if you're a movie studio and you can get an AI to do something that's going to be effective and it's going to build suspense for your movie, and you could do it at a fraction of the cost of paying someone to do that, it's kind of a no-brainer for the studio to pick the AI because it's an important element of the movie, but it's something that's in the background for most people. And if it's done effectively, then the audience isn't going to have such an easy time distinguishing between, did a famous composer write this soundtrack, or did this AI that they're using write this soundtrack, right? So I mean,
Mhm.
that's why we exist as this art arbor community. Is we want to protect the rights and the rewards of real human creativity before a lot of these things that are quickly approaching us become a large challenge. We need to come together and be really intentional about how we transact in this community. And I think sometimes there's some sacrifices that need to be made. Like, sometimes I think you have to face the reality of, I need to, pay a cover charge at a bar to be able to have this band here. Otherwise, there's not going to be a band here. Or I need to pay $500 for this painting because that person's trying to feed their family. It's not an AI generated piece of art that I could print out and hang on my wall. Like, you have to really have like that connection to the humanity behind the art to really appreciate it. And I think, you know, with this mass amount of information that we already have to process with this digital place and the digital landscape, it's already too overwhelming to where the supply is so large that we're not able to correctly price things as much anymore. And AI is just going to completely and fundamentally make that problem worse.
Mm.
Dun dun dun.
Mm. Yeah, where's
That
the music? Can I find the music? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we need to hire somebody. No AI. Get
Shit.
someone on
Uh,
that.
that got
Uh,
expensive.
but
I that's what I like about
yeah,
AI though, is that I believe, and I really do believe this, that we are now in an age, in an era where creating has never become cheaper and easier. It's becoming easier and easier for people who have an idea for an app to create an app. Never been easier to, I would think, like, direct and create a movie, because you could do your own, AI soundtrack. You could do some maybe imaging software. You can do like your own background without green screens now. I mean, you could really almost make your own movie without just you and a laptop. So I think this level of creation is going to increase, and I hope it allows people to be everyone to create some sort of artwork and have the ability to express themselves in some sort of artistic medium. So for me, I really see that as being one of the wonderful gifts of AI. I know Naval speaks quite a bit about this, and uh, I think he speaks really well on ways of also being authentic. So he's someone good to check out.
yeah,
Mm.
I think there's a lot of futurists and optimists about AI that hope that, like you said, that you could use it as a tool to advance what you're doing. But I hope that AI takes away a lot of the tasks that are not fulfilling to people. Like, I'm in finance and accounting, and I don't particularly like all of the manual work that is entailed with it sometimes in my profession. And if that could allow me to focus on doing something more creative instead of having to do that, or even just doing something in my role that's more fulfilling outside of art in general, if we're just talking about AI as a whole, that would be a net gain for society. There's always the classic like newspaper clippings of like, the calculator is going to take all our jobs away, don't use a calculator, like 100 years ago. But it's like, now that would be like such a ridiculous thing to go put in the public square right now. Like, ban calculators, they're hurting humanity. Like, obviously not. I think like we can't be too afraid of it, but we just need to, along the way, like, remember to value the things that go into it. And I think there's a lot of really good work being done by some unions to protect the intellectual property and rights of creators, because as I mentioned earlier already, that all this AI knowledge and machine learning is based on human creation and input. Like, the origin of all of its synthesis of data was from human creation. So making sure that those people are compensated, and making sure that we continue to compensate people when they're doing work and not pricing them out of the market by being undercut by an AI, right? So, but at the same time, you know, I think artists can also use a lot of these up and coming softwares and AI tools to take away a lot
Mhm.
of that administrative bureaucratic work that people don't like to do, and spend more time creating their art and less time, you know, keeping up with their books and reaching out and managing contracts with customers, and trying to write emails or write posts or create content. Like, if an artist could use AI to create some really nice content to help promote
Mhm.
their art, I think that's a really positive application of it. Or you know like, for example, and with our band within the Blue, our business, like, there's a lot of AI built into QuickBooks Online, um,
Mhm.
just basic bookkeeping software, which is a reality of running a business, as being an entrepreneur in art, that you
Mhm.
have to keep up your books, you have to
Mhm.
file taxes, you have to do business with customers, you have to have insurance, all these things going on. If AI can give me more time back in my day to not do those things, then that's a benefit for art too.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and there's a lot of great softwares out there too that could be utilized for doing things like creating contracts or, like you said, making content, giving you content ideas. So I think there's definitely a lot of great ways of using AI, and a lot of companies out there using the good software with AI that's saving time so people can stay more organized and be out creating versus uh, doing an Excel spreadsheet or whatever they got to do to run their brand on the back end and not get audited from the IRS or whatever.
I
And
mean, you can use
yeah.
AIs for so many things. Like, you can have it be a coach for you. Say I'm an artist and I'm trying to come up with a budget. Have an AI help you come up with a whole business plan. Say I'm trying to work on my
Mhm.
marketing mix. Have a conversation with it. Like, use that AI to tap into all of that knowledge of things
Mhm.
that are out there, and use it to your advantage to grow, because now's the time to unlock all of these things. Like, the first phase was like, go to college, get a mentor. Then it was like, okay, go watch a YouTube video. Now it's literally like, you can prompt this thing to give you the blueprint to what you need to do. Be like, I'm trying to make money as an artist. Like, ask an
Yeah.
AI, like, have a conversation with the AI and tell them about yourself, tell them about your art, tell them about your
Mm.
business, and the AI will probably surprise you with a lot of really good results.
It will. I use ChatGPT and Google Gemini, and they both have their own strengths, but they have shocked me with what they remember and what they put together and information that I told it, months ago in a chat that we had, and will pull up for a recent chat to give me the most accurate thing for me. It's really, it's like, dang, you know what sounds like truthful right when you hear things, when you read things, and you read the AI prompt, you send it, you get an answer back. It's like, dang, that's actually some fire. You just can copy and paste that and be off to the races. Done that many times.
Yeah, and if you think about these things as improving, within price and the four P's of marketing, like your cost structure, if you
Mhm.
spend a lot of time struggling to figure out what your budget is, if you struggle to do your accounting, if you struggle to all the time spent, managing all these emails and communications and things, if you leverage and invest in some software and use AI to your advantage, you really can reduce your cost structure as an entrepreneur in art, and
Mhm.
be able not to just get that time back, but also take some cost out to where you have less pressure on the price that you're putting into your mix for what you're
Mm,
charging for your art.
mm. Yeah, you can increase efficiency, time, and money utilizing some of these things. I definitely want to talk about a few softwares that have helped me, besides OpenAI and Gemini. For me, when I'm helping artists and small business owners, it's things like a CRM are huge. They can really organize things and help you stay accountable and see what's going on, and just really have a good understanding of what's going on in the business. So a lot of times I'll use a CRM, and for things that most people wouldn't think to use a CRM for. So I've helped with used it for bands and stuff on where they're looking to play, and uh, but I know some softwares have really integrated tools that are pretty optimized for artists.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, CRM's customer relationship management. So if you think about how you can use technology to more effectively manage those relationships, you're going to get a lot more out of those relationships than you would trying to just service them on your own. I know with the band, I tried one CRM that Andrew actually recommended, HubSpot, which is a pretty
Mhm.
well-known
Mhm.
one. I think it
Mhm.
works better for certain businesses or for sales processes, but I've really found one in particular to be really helpful is HoneyBook. And that company is very responsive to their customers and continues to innovate and launch new things. Like they have a finance module now. They've introduced AI tools into the suite. So one thing that delighted me recently was I had a client asking me about pricing changes and modifying a quote for an event that we're trying to put together with the band. And the AI actually is trained on all of our pricing and our information. And I was so impressed because we have ranges of pricing based on the distance that we travel to go. And it actually knew based on where the event was located what the correct pricing was. And it wrote me an email that updated the client on what the pricing update was going to be. And I was like, that is really cool because I didn't have to sit
Mhm.
there and calculate it and figure it. I still checked my work. I was like, is that right? Like,
Mhm.
is that really? I'm like, yeah. It
Wow.
had it had a travel charge. It had a change in the number of musicians in the ensemble. It had an hour added on, and it calculated all of that out, and it just saved me time, leveraging that technology. And I mean, I don't trust it to auto respond to a customer, but it has some options to do things like that.
Mhm.
Automation, while I'm sleeping, it can be writing and sending me an email. That's one less thing that I have to deal with, and we can get back to what is important with the
Mhm.
music and not be caught up in all that administrative work, and just streamlining and making my process more efficient so that I can, grow my business too as the manager of the band. That's my goal and my passion is to be able to allow
Mhm.
them to do more and to create more and to be rewarded for their art. So if I can have tools that, boost that initiative, then that's a huge win for me. I mentioned QuickBooks Online is great for small businesses, be able
Mhm.
to access all of your records and invoices and transactions and taxes and all of these things in the cloud right from your phone. They have a card reader that can connect to your phone to take payments and all of these things, implementing technology into, if you even have a physical business, let's say you're not really even an e-commerce business, like having a card reader, having Venmo, having these suites of tools that can work together to make things reduce that friction for you and for the customer is really going to help you grow your small business as an artist.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. And there's emerging like softwares that are very specific for certain things. And so there's one company I came across called Laylo, Laylo, and they're like a music artist CRM. So I think there, and there's a few other ones that are quite similar to specific industries and specific kind of structures of systems, kind of like what you're saying, all the benefits of HoneyBook versus HubSpot for your particular brand. So just because in a lot of them too have really in-depth like walkthroughs, so I think it's very approachable for someone who's not maybe familiar with even using their laptop or internet for things related to their artistry. If you're very much just a physical person, you get phone calls and texts, and that's how things work. I think you'd be really shocked on how easy it is to use, like a CRM or some sort of management software, for some finance software. It's approachable. There's so many resources online to help walk you through it too. There's even many resources to help you monetize your knowledge, like courses and exclusive events and digital events and all. There's so many things out there to help you just work, be working smarter. And I think a lot of them are, they sound daunting. They sound like another thing that you have to do, and there's so many things you have to do, but really it's the amount of time you put in, you get so much more out of it that it makes it so worth it to explore and to find softwares that work for you.
And while I think both of us would probably recommend that as the route, I mean, some people don't want to do this stuff at all. And I know that we want to empower people to focus on their art. I mean, there are lots of resources out there to have this outsource. Like you can find someone to help you manage your business, or a coach to help you with something, or you can just outsource a task. I think if you really make something into a task that you dread, it's going to weigh you down, and it's going to limit your success. So whatever you think you could leverage, whether it's a software tool, using AI, using a mentor, using a coach, hiring something out, like don't be afraid to invest in those things and to use it, because you're going to get so much more output from that input than you were if you were just going to struggle to do things the way that you've always done them and that you've done just on your own. Because I mean, the reality of it is we have such limited time. Like why, if you're not an expert in accounting, like don't try to become an accountant if you don't want to. Like if that doesn't
Mhm.
really get you going, like hire someone to do it, or use QuickBooks or something. Like just implement something so that you can get back to doing what you want to do, being authentic to yourself and creating art that you want to create, because that's what's really important, not being focused in all this data and all of this work that is now a real necessity to exist.
Mm. Yeah, that's so well said, dude. Yeah, and I think, of course, if anyone is listening to this and, of course, has questions and wants to know more, please comment, email us, DM us individually, whatever. We love talking about this stuff. So, uh, yeah, shout out to
Absolutely.
those who've been listening, to the friends out there. We really do appreciate you.
And our email is, we always have our stuff on our pages, but info@artarbor.community is our email. Please drop a line there, and we'd love to be in touch. We'd love to talk to you, hear feedback
Mhm.
from you. And we're an open book. Anything that we have to share, let's have a dialogue, and continue to engage with us on our social medias. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram primarily. We're on LinkedIn for those of you out there on LinkedIn. Find us there. Here on YouTube, where the pod's hosted. Continue to engage with us. We have a survey up. We're trying to collect some information as we're
Yes.
working through many things. If you're interested in being interviewed by us or providing us with anything, we would greatly value the community growing with us. So be in
Yes.
touch, and thanks for joining us today on episode 6 of Rooted, the Art Arbor podcast. We'll be back and we'll have more for you. We're gonna have some guests coming up again soon, so stay tuned. Bye. Peace.
You guys.